I'm Stacy Grinsfelder.
And I'm Daniel Cantor.
And you're listening to True Tales from Old Houses, the Minisode. Hey, Daniel.
Hey, Stacy, fresh-faced and back from Florida. How are you?
Oh, I'm good. Yes, I'm very, very happy to be back. So we had a little snafu through TSA.
Oh no, drugs again.
It was not. Something about Orlando, their TSA feels more like a border crossing than a TSA. It's really kind of wild. But no, they took issue with my ID, my identification. There was one different letter on it. I've never had that called out before. And then after they passed me over to a supervisor who said everything was okay, then they stopped me because of my laptop. So I just want everyone to know that I am a very shady person trying to get out of the state of Florida.
Fraudulent government ID is a felony, Stacy.
Right. Yes.
I'm not sure what the statute is. I mean, I don't know. I hate that stuff. Oh, that's terrible. I'm sorry, but you made it.
Yeah, right after I got into the airport, then there was this big alarm. Okay, so this alarm goes off, lights are flashing. I'm thinking, this is kind of a big deal, right? And I look around and not a soul is even flinching. Like they're just looking at like big deal. And so I listen, I take out my little AirPod and I listen, and it says something like, this is an alarm. We are currently investigating. We will get back to you as soon as possible. Like over and over and over again. Lasted for 15 minutes and not a soul, literally not a soul seemed concerned about it. People were just like spooning in their food, eating their Chick-fil-A. Nobody cared. It was the weirdest thing. I was like, I cannot get out of here fast enough. I think I was just in a bad mood, but I was just really ready to be home. So yeah, little did you know what can of worms you were going to open when you asked me that question.
The amount of self-restraint I'm exhibiting, not talking about Florida in a negative way whatsoever.
Well, this is not the Florida podcast. We have other interesting things to discuss. But before we do, I would like to thank our sponsors, the Window Course from Scott Seidler of the Craftsman blog, located in Florida, and Sutherland Wells.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, so I'm dying to ask you, Daniel, I think you have a cottage update for us.
Is there an update? There might be an update. So, in the classic form that we've been discussing the cottage, we'll talk about it real time, you and I sitting here recording on this day. And on this day in history, my lawyer is apparently preparing a contract for the accepted offer on the cottage. So,
congratulations.
Thank you. It was a whirlwind, I guess. It was so weird. Everything about it felt so weird from the second the listing went up. I posted about it. The realtor, who has a lot of followers, posted about it almost immediately on Zillow. There's 300 saves, which is a ton for a house in my area. I was comparing to other houses that had been listed for 3 months, and they're 100 saves, and mine's way up there. So I didn't know how to think about that, and I feel I will admit I'm a human being, and when a bunch of people tell me the same thing over and over again, I start to believe it. So I won't pretend I wasn't a little enamored with the idea of a bidding war and this crush of bids that was all going to come in and it was going to be gone in 2 days and all this stuff. And, that didn't really come to pass, which is really fine. The way I think about it is, number one, my feeling with this house and the way that I renovated this house not being kind of the let's try to appeal to every single person on earth kind of style renovation. I did not want to do that. And so along with that, you're sort of taking the gamble that, I really need at least one right person to also be into the same thing that I'm into in terms of all the decisions I've made here.
And you did.
I did. And it never felt like it was the kind of house that was going to have kind of mass appeal beyond that it is so adorable. So I feel most of the residential building stock in Kingston is going to be like your basic house. If you were just going to say, draw me a Kingston house, it would be a 3-bed, 1.5 bath, side hall Victorian, about 1,500 square feet to 1,800 square feet. We have a ton of those. And I think if I had done a renovation like this on a house like that, the bidding were a bit of bloodbath. But with this, I do, because the market is hot and, it's softened from where it was maybe a couple years ago, but it does seem like prices have stayed basically the same. I'm not a economist.
Oh, no?
Shockingly. Did you know that? And so to me, I felt like nobody was going to walk into this house and say, oh, this is terrible. It's ugly. I hate it. I mean, it's not. It's adorable. However, I can totally see people walking into that house and saying, I want this vibe, but I want a third bedroom, or I want a bigger backyard, or I want, you know, that list is different for everyone. And so, yeah, this just is not the house for everyone. And that is so super okay and so super as I thought. All of this to say, the house listed on Thursday. There were several walkthroughs just that day, which shocked me. I was not ready for that. There were more the next day. There was an open house the next day after that. The open house was only like 2.5 hours, but 25 groups, they call them, like, you know, somebody with their broker or just an interested buyer or whatever. 25 groups walked through. And by the end of the day, we had an offer on the table.
That's amazing. So you had 25 groups. Did you get a feel for how many just looky-loos there were? Just people who wanted to see it?
Not really. I, of course, was not there. I did tell the agents in advance. I was like, two things are probably going to happen. Number one, people who have just like, you know, followed me on Instagram or read my blog or whatever will probably show up, and they're not necessarily interested buyers. And people from around the neighborhood will probably show up because this house has just been under renovation for so long and they all know me. And so, you know, they want to see what happened.
I would have come.
Yeah. So I have no idea kind of what the split was between kind of lucky loos and actual interested buyers. But I know there were quite a few interested buyers that day. Then there were more showings the next day. So anyway, and then I've kind of been learning these things that I just didn't really either ever know or remember. I've bought 3 houses, and I fully do not remember that apparently the part between having your accepted offer and actually signing contracts, the buyer can still walk. Did you know this?
I don't remember that either. I think maybe because we wanted our house so much. And this is the only piece of property. And I've only purchased a house in New York. I've never sold a
Right.
house in New York. I've sold other properties, but they were always in different states. So I don't know. I certainly didn't know that, I
It's
guess.
very odd to me. So basically, at least in the state of New York, when you submit an offer officially, right? It's
Right.
for this amount of money, this anticipated closing date, these contingencies, etc. The seller then will review that and typically get back to you pretty quickly, accepting, countering, or rejecting, right?
Right. Is there earnest money still involved here?
Not at this moment.
Interesting.
And maybe that's the difference, because I very much do not remember having, once my offers were accepted on those properties, like, I don't remember feeling any kind of like weird weeks worth of anxiety about like, oh, well, we only have an accepted offer. We're not in contract. But I guess, and that also could be because all 3 of those properties that I did buy were not, they had sat, they were messes, you know, it
Right.
didn't feel like there was a bunch of competition. So maybe that's the difference, but I just do not remember this. And apparently, I'm still kind of a free agent until the contract happens. So, as kind of super slimy as it would feel to back out of this, if it is possible something will still come.
Yeah. If somebody swooped in and offered you $1 million, you could be like, okay, sure, I'll take it.
Right. So, like,
Interesting.
if the offer, if I had accepted the offer and that like bound me to it, they'd stop showing, and you know that would be kind of it, unless it fell through. It with this, it's like we have an accepted offer. They don't stop showing the house until the contract is signed, and then it becomes pending. Isn't it crazy?
And here's what I remember from buying Blake Hill House here in New York. So we were competing with other people. We didn't know what those offers were going to be. This house had been on the market for a long time. And then the price kept going down. So when it reached a point at which people were thinking, yes, we should buy that, it all happened at once. So to the best of my knowledge, there were 3 or 4 of us who were competing. And we turned our offers in with our realtors. It was one of those things where the lawyers were going to look at it at 5 o'clock on Friday. Remember, we were talking
Yeah,
about that previously.
all offers due best and final.
Yes. All offers, because it turned out there was going to be a lot of interest in it all at one time. So our offer went in with our earnest money check written. And so, our realtor had our earnest money check, our offer. They all presented the offers to the lawyers of the estate, who chose ours based on what criteria, I do not know. I don't think that we were the highest bidder. I think we did
Really?
have a good chunk of earnest money, because
Interesting.
I think it was really full price offers only.
Sorry, just to clarify, earnest money is different than the deposit or same?
I know it as earnest money. It's basically like, here's this check so that you know I'm serious about purchasing this property. I don't know
Right.
it as a deposit, but maybe it's called a deposit. I don't know.
I love that we're just like both confused
Let's
and still
sort
talking
this
about
out.
it, but we're gonna figure it out. So I also feel like, and maybe this is the difference, that I really feel like I remember, and I'm sure I could, dig up files, but that when I submitted the offer, I put down like it was like $500 or maybe
Oh.
$1,000, but just something that, and maybe that's the difference, because once money's exchanged, it is like legally binding, whereas right now it's just a piece of paper. Because with this deal, like the at contract, which should happen early next week, that's when they will give a check to my lawyer to hold in escrow, which is it's a 10% deposit.
Oh, okay. So yeah, we didn't do the 10. So the 10% deposit, that was something we took care of with the bank. The earnest money was
Right,
different.
right.
So the earnest money and we still had a chance to walk, but it was like a short period of time. So once you've said you want it and you have this earnest money and everybody says, okay, yours is the offer you accept. I think it was like 72 hours, 42 hours, 72 hours. It's a pretty short window, or else you lose your earnest money
If you walk away,
if you walk
it's
away.
non-refundable. So you probably
Right.
just offered the most earnest money, assuming all bids
Yeah.
were full
Right.
asking.
That's what I think.
That's interesting.
Yeah, what ended up happening too was that none of us knew that there was an already a contingent offer on this property on Blake Hill House, and they hadn't been able to sell their house, so they fell out of that 3-month window that they had to sell their house, or 6 months, or I don't know what it was then. And so they accepted our offer and said yes, but then they had to go back to the contingent buyer and give them, and I know it was 72 hours because it was a very long 72 hours for us.
I'm sure.
But they had 72 hours to decide whether or not they could move forward with the purchase in another way, or maybe they would finalize this offer. Somebody would purchase their house and finalize it and make that happen. And they ended up walking away after 72 hours, which is why we ended up going forward and eventually living here. So yes, it was a very stressful time.
The level of guilt, Stacy, because we got the offer on Saturday night and didn't actually officially accept it until Tuesday afternoon, evening. And literally, like, I called the agent and put in writing, and I really hope it made it to them, that I was just like, please, please send along my deepest apologies for the anxiety that they have probably been feeling over the last few days. Like, I'm so sorry. Like, that is just the worst. Because I feel like all three of mine, like, it was within 24 hours that I had an
Right.
answer, at least.
Oh, we are too nice to sell real estate.
I know. Well, and this is exactly why I think we talked about it on the last episode, that I'm so glad to be insulated by people that I'm paying to do jobs that
Right. It's
keep me
important.
from having to deal with this, because I literally know their name. I don't know anything about them. I do not think they're followers of mine or anything.
But you want to be best friends now, don't you?
Well, I mean, there is also the element of they are going to be my neighbors. So,
Right.
like, however this deal happens, and assuming they are the ones that close, because nothing else happens over the next few days, we sign these contracts, we're good.
It ain't over until it's over, as we say.
Right. And I would like them to enter our relationship with some goodwill toward me, because I'm not just the jerk trying to, like, get all your money. I
Right.
just am trying to sell you a beautiful house.
True Tales from Old Houses is supported by the Window Course. The Window Course, created by Scott Seidler of the Craftsman blog, is a step-by-step, do-it-yourself program that will teach you everything you need to know to successfully restore your wood windows. It's self-paced, so you can go as slow or as fast as you need, and there are also several price points to fit your needs and budget.
Now that we're headed into the warmer months, it is officially window season. So now is the perfect time to get ready to restore the windows at your house, and the Window Course has all the information that you need all in one place. Scott is offering his students a special deal. If you sign up for the Lifetime Access Package or Training Package, then you'll also get a free infrared paint remover, which is a $100 value.
The Window Course comes with a money-back guarantee, and Scott is offering True Tales from Old Houses listeners a special discount. For 10% off, visit thewindowcourse.com and use the coupon code TrueTales. True Tales from Old Houses is also supported by Sutherland Wells. All of Sutherland Wells products are handcrafted in Providence, Rhode Island, with the highest quality, sustainably grown tung oil. Tung oil, which is native to China, has been used for centuries as a durable finish for wood, metal, and stone.
Said it before, I'll say it again. Unlike polyurethane, tung oil finish actually penetrates the surface of the wood, so it flexes and contracts as the conditions change, which makes it the perfect pre-finish or protectant for everything from fine furniture to window sash and sills.
You know, I'm a huge fan of the Clarabelle's Plus oil primer combination for window work. I also like the Slicky Wicky, Millie's, Murdoch's. I've tried so many of them. And whatever project you personally are working on, Sutherland Wells has an entire product line. This season, you might be working on siding, hardwood floors, furniture restoration, cutting boards, you name it.
So to learn more about the complete product line, visit Sutherland Wells, that's WELLES, sutherlandwells.com. And to save 10% on your first order, use the coupon code TrueTales.
Speaking of money, now that you will
Yes.
have some more in your pocket, do you have plans? And I'm asking you that, some people would be like, I'm going on vacation, I'm going here. But I know that a lot of your life, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but so many things have been in a holding pattern for you for quite some time. With your current house, the one you're living in now, so do you have plans for this extra money?
I do have some plans, you could say. So plan number one is just paying off my debts.
Oh, debts. Oh, those.
I owe a nice big check on this project. I also owe a check on the duplex that is for when this project is sold. So there's a nice big check going out just for those things, which is, not exciting. But
can I say something though? It may not feel exciting, but I wonder, at least I would feel just a huge weight lifted off my shoulders if I no longer had that debt. So do you feel like you're going to get that relief from writing those checks and having that behind you?
Yes, there will be definitely a relief of just, sort of not having debt hanging over me, or as much debt hanging over me. And then for the balance of it, I mean, you're right. A lot of things in my house have been sort of in a holding pattern. To be honest, that's mostly been a time thing, way more than a money thing. DIY renovations. There's still major expenses, but I don't view my house as needing a $200,000 renovation. But for a lot of people, if they weren't doing the work themselves, like they probably would. So I'm very, very happy to have my time back. And so for the money part of it, I'm like kind of trying to think like the rich, What do rich people do with their money, Stacy? Let me tell you. I think
they invest it.
They turn it into more money. That's right, baby. So we're going to try doing a couple things like that. And by that, I mean basically investing in the house. I'm going to throw some just like very round numbers out there. But basically, let's think of it this way. My house was $85,000. I would have to do some serious forensic accounting because it wasn't something I've tracked all that well for the first 7 years or so. But I've probably over the last 11 years invested about the same in the house. So let's call it we're at $170,000 fully invested in this home at this point. And then the house is probably worth 700,000 completed. And so therefore, my feeling is we're not over investing in the house by adding something really nice. And by something really nice was my very long way of saying air conditioning.
Rich people would definitely put air conditioning in their house.
Rich people need yes.
Yeah. We don't have air conditioning either, and it is so hot here. Not for a very long time, but it is so hot. So I don't know. On video today, I can see I have like a little sweaty, little glistening mustache above my lips. So yeah, I'm already jealous.
It's very much a pipe dream at this point. But yeah, I feel like air conditioning is both an investment in the house and the overall kind of value of the house, but also just in my comfort living here. I don't like living here in the summer. It's very hot. I have all these AC units. They're loud. They're not great for the house.
That sound starts to wear on me after a while. We only have one air conditioning unit, but we use a lot of fans. And when you get them all going, it sounds like you're behind a jet engine, like after a while. I'm thinking, oh, I just need some quiet. But yeah, no. The weird thing about our house is that we actually have all the ductwork. We could have air conditioning.
Right. Why don't you? What are you doing?
I will tell you why we don't have air conditioning. Well, money. It costs a lot of money. But the main reason we didn't go in that direction yet is because we have these 2 furnace units down in the basement. And I've talked about this before, but I don't think I told you this. But in the 90s, I guess it would have been Dorothy, the previous owner, she put these 2 units in. They are natural gas units. They are big. They're monsters compared to what you would be able to buy now for the same comfort level. And the person who put them in, the company who put them in, she had one thermostat. So they were supposed to be wired together to operate on one thermostat. And so when we moved in the first winter that we lived here, one side of the house was boiling hot, just so hot. And then the other side of the house was freezing. And we were trying to figure out, like, what is wrong with this? We have these 2 furnaces. We can see the ductwork. We know that they are meant, one of them is meant to operate on one side of the house. The other unit is for the other side of the house. They're supposed to work together. So I called in the company, a furnace company, and I said, hey, can you kind of troubleshoot these and try to figure it out? He found out that they had never been wired together, ever.
So for 20 years, that furnace just sat there looking pretty.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Yes. So we have a 1990s, we have 2 1990s furnaces. One of them has been used since the 1990s, and the other one is, in essence, 10 years old.
It's like dead stock. So
yes,
funny.
yes. So, it just didn't seem like we should be, we kept thinking, well, maybe this will stop working, and then we'll look at a whole unit that works for air conditioning and heating. But until then, why throw something out that's working?
Right.
And then 10 years goes by, and here we are with all the ductwork, and we still have these workhorse furnaces with no end in sight. So that is why we don't have air conditioning.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. I mean, my house is hot water radiators for heat, so there is no ductwork at all. So this is truly just a full new system, soup to nuts, top to bottom. So it's really hard, though, to figure it out in an old house. I'm sure many of our listeners can relate. It's like there's basically 4 viable options these days. So, like, your first is just your conventional HVAC, AC. You have big air handler in your attic and or your basement. And then the big condenser on the side of your house. And that's kind of, we all know that. Then, obviously, a little newer technology is the heat pump stuff. And so there's kind of 2 like sub options in there. One is the big kind of wall mount cassette thing that we all have seen a bunch of. It is sort of unsightly, very effective, but ain't no way I'm putting it in my house. I'm sorry. It's too ugly. And I also kind of had to eventually decide that I do feel the same way about both the ceiling units. They make a ceiling version that can go like between the joists, but it's still very device looking, It has a little screen. this and that. They also make one that goes like right at the top of the wall, which I think is I don't know. They're all kind of a bummer to me. And I just sort of said no. But there is also a heat pump option that's just a ducted system. So we actually put those in the land bank houses. Almost all of them have this system. And from any room inside the house, you would think it's just a regular HVAC system because it just has a regular vent in the ceiling. But all of the equipment is a little smaller, much more energy efficient, all that stuff. So like that I feel like is an option for me, but the ductwork is still, normal duct sizes. So it's hard to get it down to the first floor without building in chases and soffits and like doing stuff that I'm not willing to do. To me, that option feels viable if I'm only air conditioning the second floor of the house, which actually I think is probably fine. That's where I have the window units anyway. I have friends who have done this where they've only done the second floor and just, let's see how that feels. And they're like, yeah, all the hot air from the first floor rises and the first floor stays nice and cool. And the second floor is where you like really want to be like comfortable, cool.
And then there's mini splits, which I don't know about you, they're not my favorite because they still need to be vented outdoors. And for me, on one side of my house, if I put in mini splits, you would see all that weird stuff on the outside of my house. I don't want that.
Yeah, so typically when they put them in, I mean, it doesn't have to be this way, but usually they're being retrofitted into a building. And so they'll basically run, it's like electric, a drain line, and a coolant line or something. And they all tend to get put in basically a PVC, big kind of PVC conduit. And so yes, I see it all the time. It drives me insane, especially it tends to be like rental buildings where the landlords just like don't care where that stuff falls. And then you have like this big hideous thing on the front of your house. And it's just like,
right.
Could we be a little more thoughtful about placement? That would be great. Thanks. But it's not how it goes. So yes, you're completely right. I don't want that. And I think I figured out how I could avoid doing that with the ducted system, but there is that element. And then sort of the last option that I'm actually kind of exploring as my first option, because I know it will be the most expensive and it would also I think be my preference, but I sort of want to get a sense of how expensive this Lamborghini is before, doing anything, is a high velocity system, which I feel like doesn't get discussed that much, but is, leaving cost aside, kind of the best solution for an old house, I think.
And it's funny that you brought this up when you said, and it doesn't get discussed much because we're actually almost out of time.
Great. Well.
Yeah. So I guess in essence, and what I like about the high velocity, which I know it as the Unico system, is that these little vents, you don't have to chop up your plaster so much because the vents are only 4 inches or something like that. They're very small.
Yeah. So the duct itself is a 2-inch nylon tube that is wrapped in fiberglass insulation. So it, all told, is about 4 inches thick, but it's sort of squishy, so they can snake it through like 2x4 walls and stuff. But yeah, the part that you see, whether it's coming out of the ceiling or the wall or the floor, it's basically like a 4-inch puck with like 2 screws, I think. And the floor ones, like they make it with like an oak trim, so like you can stain it to match your flooring. Like it's all pretty inconspicuous. The classic sort of complaint against these is noise. But
high velocity sounds noisy.
Right. But the installer that did the one that has actually come out to the house but has not turned around to quote yet, classic, told me right off the bat, he was like, people are going to tell you that these are noisy. I'm going to tell you, I've been putting in these systems for 30 years. I started this company basically to put in these systems, and it's a installation problem where basically people aren't putting enough ducts into one space. So when you're putting too much demand on too few ducts, that's when you get that noise. But he's like, the way we install them, it's super like by the book and you're not going to have that problem. So I don't know. We'll see how many zeros are at the end of that quote.
Yeah. I'm dying to know. Will you share that with us? I mean,
yeah.
Or is that weird? Like, so I like to talk about money on this podcast, but also I don't, different parts of the country and different installers. And I don't know how much markup there is on a system like that, especially one that's proprietary like Unico.
I kind of don't care. I think What all I've
Okay.
really learned is that people do really like numbers, and people generally are smart enough to recognize that things will be different in their market. But I think it's helpful
Right.
for people to know, a marble
Sure.
countertop, and at least in my area, will cost you this much per square foot fabricated and installed. Like people very much appreciate that information. So I am more than happy to talk about it. The sale of this house is public record. Everyone's going to know exactly how rich I am. So
Yeah.
it's fine.
I feel like you get a pass on everything though, because like, I mean, I say that with love because I love you. But if I tell people how much something cost, they'll be like, "Wow, big pockets. How can you afford that?" Or "How can anybody afford that?" I get a lot of that.
You know what wins you a lot of friends?
What?
You just say, "It seems like you're jealous," and then you block
Oh,
them. I've never done that, but I do think it would be fun.
that would be a strategy. But yeah, from the Daniel can do no wrong school of thought, we should talk about every
You're just
number. From the
jealous.
Stacy. Yeah, I am. I am just jealous.
Oh, you're not you. I didn't mean you, but you can be.
Yeah. No, I'm super happy for you.
Thank you.
I'm excited that you may possibly get some air conditioning and start living like the rich. I'm just kidding about that.
It's going to be
know.
caviar 3 meals a day. I mean,
Right.
can't wait.
That's so you. I can just see it. But no, I'm excited for you. So the next conversation we have, maybe at least we'll have some signatures written on some dotted lines,
That's the idea. Yeah.
which of course is not stressful at all.
Well, honestly, I do feel like once we're in contract, that doesn't feel that stressful to just sort of have it locked in.
Good point. Because we're not doing a mortgage, right? Right?
Correct. Yes, I buried the
Okay.
lead maybe on that one. So we did actually have 2 offers. The other one was financing. This one was all cash. And I'm like, I'm not saying no to cash.
Yeah. When financing is involved, that's when the next level of stress occurs.
That's correct. Yes. So the stress with the cash offer is in this case, at least, it's contingent upon the sale of another property. That deal sounds extremely solid. I'm not really that worried about it, but that's the big thing that could change. But
Right.
that is why my
Amazing.
agents negotiated a quite large non-refundable deposit should they be unable to close. So
Wonderful.
I don't know. I'm so glad to be surrounded by qualified professionals because I would be like, here's the keys. Have fun.
Yeah.
Pay me later.
I'm sure this will work out.
Yeah. Do you have Venmo? Yeah. Oh, God.
All right. Well, we got to go for today. But again, so happy for you. And we will talk
Thank
next
you.
week then. Thank you for listening to True Tales from Old Houses, the Minisode. Until next time.